Today, we're going to take a look at the historic view of how wealthy people create wealth. We're going to look at how they create wealth and make it simple for you to follow without the financial institutions or financial advisors. Stay tuned.
From Philadelphia, the home of the Liberty Bell, Financial Freedom Radio starts now. Here's your host, Raymond Jewell.
Imaging is key. That's key to creating wealth. That's what the wealthy do. And I've been studying this for well over 35, maybe even 40 years. One of the things that's important in creating wealth is you've got to know what it looks like before it happens. I've taught that to many, many clients. I've practiced it myself, and believe me, it works. So let's dig into what the wealthy actually do and how they do it. And it's imaging is key. When they image and create the financial picture of what it looks like, they don't waver. They create that image and they stick to that image. They stay focused on the image without any distractions. It's key to know that. Once you come up with an idea that you're going to use to create wealth, you want to stay focused on it. That's what the wealthy people do. It's not complicated. They end up staying focused on their wealth, and they stay focused all of their life. They don't change. They don't hop from one place to another. Although their image may change over time as their wealth starts to create, they stay focused on what tool they start to create their wealth through. A lot of times people get impatient with what they're doing. Sometimes it doesn't happen fast enough. They don't put up with that. They stay focused, and they stay focused on a daily basis, and they focus on the journey. The daily journey is probably the more exciting part than the end result, because they know the end result is going to be achieved no matter what. So they focus on the journey, and that becomes the exciting part. Every day they wake up, what they're going to do that day to get to their goal. The journey, not the end. If you focus on the end, it never happens. You'll get frustrated and quit. But it seemed like they knew that. So they put one foot in front of each other. They knew they had to crawl before they ran. And many times, though, if you look at wealth creation historically, they would start out as an apprentice or a journeyman, whichever comes first. I'm not sure what it is. They start out in a trade and they work with somebody else. And they work until they get to the point where they're an expert at that. And then they go out on their own. So they've worked toward that goal while they're making that transition to the end result. The journey is key, and not getting impatient. It's kind of like having a constant movie in your mind, kind of like imaging your own biography. What does it look like? What would it be like? How long did it take? If you look at other wealthy people, their journey takes a long time. By the time you hear about them, they've probably been at it for a good 10 or 15 years. It's not something that people do overnight. But once they start, they don't stop, and it starts to create their wealth and their lifestyle, and it becomes their life. And a lot of people don't get that. They do not get that part, that it's a life that you live that becomes the whole process in the wealth creation process. They don't get it. All they're looking is the pile of riches at the end of the rainbow without looking for the rainbow. They think the rainbow has all of a sudden materialized itself, and there it is. They think it's like winning the lottery, and it's not. It takes time. Sometimes it can be 5 years, sometimes it can be 2 years, sometimes it can be 10 years, 20 years, but you'll see progress all the way through it. in your business, if you get one customer and it may take you a couple of months to get that customer. And then you keep going a couple of months later, you get another customer, and then 2 sales in a month. And it works that way. It's an exponential curve that starts down here and it goes up to here. Everything has an exponential curve growth. The beginning, the growth part, and then the enjoyment part up the top. And not saying you don't enjoy it as you go through it. The enjoyment is a journey. So it's kind of like you're writing your own biography in your mind, and then you're living it. Here's another thing with imaging. Business plans become a key to that, because you've heard people say in building a business, put together your business plan. There's no business in the world that will ever survive without a business plan. It's just not going to happen. And for the life of me, I don't know why people don't do it. I've even talked to people that have business degrees. And I ask them, did you put together a business plan? Oh, no, I've got it in my head. It's not going to work. You got to put it down on paper, because that becomes the path you're going to follow. You start to create images around developing that plan. Your brain starts to create a strategy to get to these places you want to go. It starts to create the growth plan in your business. A business plan is vital. No bank will ever let you borrow a sizable amount of money without a business plan. But yet, what do people do? They start a business without a plan. So when we're looking at the wealthy people, they create that image. They also have a business plan, and they follow it without question, not wavering, staying focused, and not getting impatient. Anyway, the wealthy people ask themselves questions. What do I want to accomplish in life? And what does that look like to me? What kind of car do I want to drive? And that's going to change as your wealth starts to go up that exponential curve. What schools do I want my children to go to? What church do I want my family to attend? Getting the picture? They design their own lives. They create that image, and they actually write it down. Remember, years ago, there were no TVs to distract people. Actually, radios in the late 1800s, they didn't have radios back then. So they were avid readers, and they would actually take time and create images of themselves. They would actually look for ideas in planning their image as they would go through their life. They would continue to refine their plan. They're designing their own life. Now, as you look at the wealthy people, when we looked backwards in our research, we found out that there's varying degrees of wealth. The people had different degrees of wealth. Some were wealthier than others. And that kind of created healthy competition between the wealthy. And so they would build their business, and they would sometimes be competitive with each other and constantly upgrade their image or their visualization of what they were doing. They would change their taste in cars. They would change their taste in travel. Back then, it wasn't the private jet, but it was having your own railroad car. I mean, that was a big deal, having your own railroad car that you could hook to the train and go anywhere you wanted. And that was luxury. Nowadays, it's private jets or flying first class. Starting out with an average car and moving up to a Mercedes, then moving up to Bentley or whatever it is you want. Taste will change as levels of wealth start to be achieved. Another thing that was important in studying them was failure is not an option. I'll say that again. Failure is not an option, because once they started on their on their wealth creation quest, they were not deterred, as I said earlier. So failure was not an option. And their image was always in a dynamic state, not a static state. It always changed, as I said earlier. It was always changing. Now, the majority of wealthy people did not make their wealth in financial institutions. They did not make it by getting other people's money and investing it. They made it by building industries, by building construction, buildings, brick and mortar. They built technology. So nowadays you hear about somebody that started a mutual fund that went out and they create billions of dollars because they go out and they persuade other people to give them money, then they invest it and give them a little piece of it, and they keep a whole lot. And they call that wealth creation. No, that's not wealth creation. That's tricking people into giving them their money, and then they work the hell out of it and give them back a little bit. We talked about it, I believe it was last show or the show before that, economic rent. The majority of the people that created wealth that we hear about build industries. They were titans of industry. John D. Rockefeller built Standard Oil. Andrew Carnegie built Carnegie Steel, which then sold to, I think it was U.S. Steel. So one of the things that we look at when we look at wealthy people is we look at how they did it. Now, Carnegie said, put all your eggs in one basket and watch the basket. In other words, don't speculate. And Rockefeller said every time he speculated, he spent more money focusing on the stocks. He would speculate in the stock market. He spent more money focusing on the stocks than he did running Standard Oil, and it made him crazy. And another thing that Carnegie said was the problem with the American businessman or professional is lack of concentration. It goes back up to what I said earlier about staying focused. The American businessman or professional has trouble staying focused. And that's why I stress it's the journey that is important, not the end result, because the end result will always change. After the Civil War, there was a whole bunch of information, self-development information that was read. And if you look at the history of the United States and kind of for the world, that wealth started happening in the US after the Civil War, because all of a sudden, these folks started reading all of these self-development books, all this information about wealth and about imaging, about visualization, about understanding infinite intelligence, which some people call God, some people call it something else. It doesn't matter what your religion is. All the religions focus on it. Meditation, they started reading about that. And so these books started to be developed, and they were reading those. Think You Grow Rich came out. There's another one called the Master Key System. We went over these, I believe, last week. And this information was out there, and it gave them what to follow. And they weren't interested in sharing it with others. They were out there doing it themselves, so it wasn't something that they would go out and share until writers started digging it out. And as they dug it out, it became more well-known and more people started practicing it. But this whole concept of imaging and visualization it works. I mean, we see it in modern day. We see it in sports. I remember watching Tiger Woods. The announcer was saying on one of the holes, it looks like you had a rough time there. And Tiger said straight up, "It wasn't what I imagined." Bam! I heard that. But unless you know what to look for, you're not going to hear it. It wasn't what I imagined. In other words, he imagined playing those holes in his mind before he played them. There are musicians that play their instruments and practice just using their mind. Football players, basketball players, all the sports guys do it. It's well known. And in my book, Life and Financial Imaging, in my workbook, which is a companion to Why the Rich Are Rich, I go into it. You'll read about it. I cite some pretty historic figures that use it and some data behind it where you can read about how it works. So it's well known that they do that sports figures do it. And we just don't do it in wealth creation because these financial institutions come to us and these advisors and go, you should put your money in the stock market. And you don't want a middleman. I've seen people give financial institutions money to people that they don't even know. Lots of their money that they don't even know. And just run the risk of losing it. That's crazy. Financial institutions are not the wealth creators. So when I talked about how to do it without financial institutions, wealthy people didn't use financial institutions. They stayed on path for what they were doing. Well, listen, I want to thank you all for coming and thank you all for listening. I hope this was helpful today. And we're going to continue to go down the road of what the wealthy people did. And believe me, it took a long time to uncover this stuff, and I'm constantly doing it. And you don't need to worry about it because we're working on it here for you. So we're going to do this every week. We have these shows, and they're going to be put up. I believe they go up every Friday, and you can hear them on Financial Freedom Radio. You can also read them on financialfreedomradio.com. On our blog, you can go there and find the blog, and we have lots of places where we put the information. So thank you all for coming and listening to me talk to you about wealth creation. And I hope you have a great week and a great weekend. And take care. God bless.
Thanks for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast. If you want to learn how to create real sustainable wealth like the extremely rich people do, or maybe you just want to sustain the wealth you already have, you need to check out Dr. Ray's new book, Why the Rich Are Rich. Ray's been coaching clients for 35 years and has completely unlocked the secret strategies that rich people use day in and day out to grow and sustain their wealth regardless of what's going on in the economy. His book is completely free, and you can get it by going to whythericharerich.com and entering your email address. Again, that's whythericharerich.com. Head over there now.